Hi, good morning. Welcome to the AS Broker Show. Good morning, Johnny.
Morning, Albert. Hope you're well.
Very well, thank you. It's Friday again, and today we're going to talk about Contractors All Risk. It's a topic we've been meaning to talk about for a long time, but we were hoping to get a guest on the show, but hopefully on a next occasion. Johnny, previously we talked about public liability, and one of the exclusions on a liability policy is things that you are working on is excluded. And a contractor's all risk policy is much more than that. But Johnny, talk to us about contractors all risk.
Yeah, so contractors basically in a nutshell, Albert, is if you a contractor basically, and you've won a contract to do anything from construction to electrical to whatever the case might be. And obviously, something goes wrong on that site, anything from theft to liability to physical damage. This policy will protect you as the contractor, because obviously, if something goes wrong, you being held liable as the contractor to fix those damages and stuff. So there's two ways you can do it. So if you are a regular contractor that does big contracts, you can have any one contract. So you have a set amount, it'll cover any contract that you do, or you can do one source. So you give literally the information for that particular contract, and we do a policy for that one particular contract. Yeah.
Yes, a specific contract or an annual contract where a contractor covers all these. Yeah, I just had an application form in front of me this morning, and I made some notes. So buildings, single, double, thatch, that's what they want to know on the application form. And then civils, earthworks, roads, bridges, sewer, water, and other. Now, when I was preparing mentally for the show this morning, actually any contractor that goes to a customer's site needs this insurance. Whether you are installing kitchens, if you're a plumber, if you any contractor that goes to a customer's premises need this insurance. Johnny, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually had a dispute with on a claim a couple of years ago where we were saying when does a client need liability cover and when does he need the contractors. So the engineering company insurer, they came back and said that you don't have to have a contract like you just said. It can be quote and acceptance based jobs as well that can be covered under your contractors. So yeah, a contractor, the policy is just so much wider if you are a contractor to cover you for losses. So it's always more recommended to take that in your standard liability policy that you have to tweak a little bit,
Yes, I think we can clarify that by just going through the sections. So contractors or risk policies got 3 sections. So it's got section 1 where it actually covers the physical contract work that you've been working on. So let's say you build a client's house. The moment the contractor starts building that house, he takes possession of that house and he is then responsible. So let's say halfway through that building contract, there's a flood, or there's a storm, or there's, even if the support collapse or something goes wrong with that building halfway through or 3/4 through the contract, the contractor is liable, not the client. So the contractor's own money that is spent on the contract is covered in that Article 1. And that also includes things like tools. So if the building contractor sets up a shed, or they normally unload a container or something on the building site, and if they break into that container and they steal, so that all risk is very, very wide. Johnny, do you agree with me?
Yeah, Albert, just on that, on tools is sometimes a tricky one. It just depends purely on the wording to wording, because I actually, that same case I was mentioning, I actually had a case that uh, went to the Ombud 2 or 3 years ago, where the client was under the impression that tools would be covered there, but tools were not. So once again, it just depends on the wording. Clients must just check 100% if it does include their tools. But obviously, all their stock and those sort of things and supplies will always be covered.
Covered.
Tools is a tricky one because some insurers want the tools to be insured under their multi-peril policy or their commercial policy, and some will include it under the contractors. So, yeah.
That's a good one, Johnny. I think so. When you work with a client and you identify the risk, one must be very careful to make certain everything is covered. I think then Section 2 or Article 2, it says surrounding property under care and not part of the contractor's work. Now, I think the best example to explain that is if somebody fits a new kitchen to an existing house. So he's only going to work in the kitchen. He's not going to work in the rest of the house. So, but the rest of the house is under his care, and that's part of the surrounding property. So let's say he does something wrong with the water and the water starts leaking or something get wet in other parts of the house. The Article 2 will cover that. Any your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's spot on, Albert. So it will cover the surrounding property that you weren't actually working on for any liability. That's a perfect example of flooding. You may be busy, your plumbers are maybe busy doing the plumbing, something goes wrong, now it floods half of the house or whatever the case might be. Yeah, so that's a perfect example of that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and then Article 3 covers the liability. Now the liability is actually one of the biggest reasons why a contractor should look at this liability, because your general liability policy on your business policy says anything that you are working on is excluded. So the moment the contractor starts working on a client's site, he's not covered unless he's got that Article 3 on a contractor's risk policy. Johnny, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually had a few claims like that, where prime example where electrical contractor was working on a big steers, I think it was, and one of his technicians did something wrong and he blew out one of the big aircon units. I think it was like 250,000 for an aircon unit, while the contract was going. So he was held liable for that. So in terms of the contract, he's liable for any of those damages, and that's where the policy would kick in. Yeah.
Okay. I also made a note of subcontractors, and that's quite important. If you think about a contractor, let's say a building contractor, so the contractor takes on the contract of building a full house from scratch. It could be that he's going to take on subcontractors. So he's going to take on a plumber to do the plumbing. He's going to take on an electrician to do the electrical work. He could maybe take on somebody that's just doing the plaster work. And during the course of this contract, a lot of subbies is going to work on that contract. So the policy makes provision for subcontractors. And Johnny, talk a bit about that, please.
Yeah, once again, always just make 100% sure that that is the case. But yeah, most of them would cover the subcontractors. So you as the main contractor would be held liable because you've won the contract, even though maybe it's your plumber that messed up. But obviously, then you can claim under your, because they're representing basically the subcontractors. But you've won the contract, you're responsible at all times. So the subcontractor does something that messes up, the policy can kick in to protect you as the main contractor.
Yes. Okay. A thing that interests me, and I don't know if it's maybe the environment that we're working on. So so previously me and you used to work for big insurance companies, and now we are brokers on our own. But when last did you see a tender document where the tender document insisted on how these contractor policies should look like? Johnny, when last did you see one?
Albert, probably a couple of months ago, I had to do a once-off contract. So if you win a tender, whatever the case may be, like this client did, it will clearly state exactly the parameters of cover that they need. It will say we need contract insurance to the value of. They'll give the amount. They'll say you need liability of say 10 million, whatever the case may be. So that actually does make it easy for the client, because he literally can approach an insurer to say, these are the parameters, this is the address, this is the period, whatever the case might be, and they can do. So they would dictate what the guys that's actually given the tender, what contract value he has to insure for, and those sort of things. Yeah.
Yes. What advice can we give to a client that is not a contractor? So let's say I am now building a new addition to my house. I'm going to spend R500,000. I'm going to build a granny flat. Um, I'm getting quotes from contractors, and I'm accepting the best quote, and ready, steady, go. There they go.
Hmm.
But myself, I'm the client.
Hmm.
I do not even know if this contractor has got contractors or risk policy. What's the risk for me?
Well, if something goes wrong and he doesn't have the funds to fix what he's broken, it could be long legal process between him and we know sometimes when it comes to building, things can get really ugly very quickly between the clients and the contractors. So yeah, the job might be delayed because now he doesn't have the funds to complete. It's always just better, if you are going to do a big renovation at your house, ask the contractor, please give me proof of your insurance.
Yes, and maybe the client can just talk to a lawyer and set up a contract, and
Mm,
in a tender document insist on this policy being in place,
yeah.
because there's going to be lots of fights, because the homeowner's personal insurance is not going to cover this.
No.
Yes. Johnny, I always find this a very interesting policy, and I like working with this. And any experience on claims? What claims have you had that you can remember?
When I was at the large insurer, yeah, a lot of theft break-in claims where over, especially if you're busy with a contract, some policies will have to clearly state what sort of security you have to have in place, depends on the value. So that's important to look at and comply with, because especially over the festive season where the site might be closed, or over the April holidays, that's normally when they'll come in, they'll hold up the guard, take a lot of copper piping, window frames. That's what happened. I think there was about a 750,000 rand theft claim, and that delays the entire project, because now they have to reorder that stock, sort out the claim. There's police involved. So theft is more prevalent than. I don't think I've ever had a liability claim where somebody on the site actually got injured or anything like that.
No.
I've had a few where they actually damaged the items, but theft is a big issue. So one thing I want to mention there, Albert, is that clients must check, once again, the different policies are structured differently. So some of them will, if you have a million rand contract, the theft value will be the full contract value. Some of them will be limited to a sub-limit. So one company might say you've got theft for the full contract value. One might say you only have 250,000 covered. So that's very important to check as well when you take out, what are your sub-limits? Is it the full value, or is it limited to certain amounts, especially on theft? Yeah,
Yes. So you would advise a client to get more than one quote, and
definitely.
maybe compare the two with one another.
Yeah.
No, I think my experience, I haven't had a big claim that I can remember. Lots of small ones. You always got the client walking in and said that the contractor fell through the ceiling,
Mm.
and I remember back in the, sometimes the claims department do not really know what they're doing, and then that claim get paid under a general liability policy.
Mm.
But the moment the claims department really know what they're doing, that's excluded from any liability policy. And the plumber, the contractor's got to fit
Mm.
that bill, or pay for it. What's the right wording?
Yeah.
Yes. So the small things that can really uh, annoy a client, and yeah, small damages.
Mm. Definitely.
Johnny, anything else on the contractors?
Yeah, I would just, like I said, to the to the clients or proposed clients, just ask questions, check what the sub limits are, check about the tools. That's very important. That is normally a contentious issue at claim stage. Um, your plant and those sort of things that you hire is not covered. There's a separate policy for that, so
Yeah.
please make sure of that. And take note of the excesses. The excess on this policy is quite high. But once again, shop around. If you've got a big contract, maybe get 2 or 3 quotes, because the excesses can be anything from 10,000 to 50,000. Just depends on where you shop around. So yeah, I would always ask questions. Look at scenarios that can go wrong on your site, and make sure that you've got the right cover for what you need. Yeah.
Yes. I think just filling out a full application form,
Mm.
that questionnaire will really guide the contractor to see what cover he needs, and cover all the basics. If you like what we do, please like and subscribe, and we are looking forward to see you in the next one, Johnny,
Albert, always thanks for having me. Yeah,
and see you on the next one.
100%. Thanks.
Cheers.